Hi everybody, Fred the Pirate here, and this is a review for Naruto Chapter 621 by Masashi Kishimoto. Pretty much in this week's chapter, we get a flashback of Hashirama and Madara fighting, which is a continuation of the flashback we had starting right at the end of last week's chapter. And we also get a little flashback of how they met as young children. So again, this was a flashback chapter, which we expected. I have to say, this was an okay chapter. Um, not a lot story-wise happened. I mean, the fight scenes were really cool. And it'll definitely be interesting to see what those look like when they eventually get animated. I'm sure that um, they'll look awesome. But so far, not a lot really happened in this week's chapter besides the fight, which that was cool. But again, story-wise, we did learn in this week's chapter that there are a lot of parallels between the relationship between Hashirama and Madara and the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke. And I mean, I know for a while the story's really been illustrating, like I mentioned in last week's chapter, the parallels between Hashirama and Naruto, and it's certainly been establishing the parallels between the two of them as individuals. But I guess this chapter really illustrates kind of the parallels not only between Naruto and Hashirama, but the parallels between Naruto and Sasuke's relationship and the relationship between Madara and Hashirama, which I guess the anime never really seemed to hint at that there was, a huge parallel between Madara and Hashirama's relationship and Naruto's and Sasuke's, because I think for a long time, we always assumed that Hashirama and Madara were enemies, and I guess we found out that they were at one point friends, but they became enemies, and I think in a very similar manner to what happened with Naruto and Sasuke. And I guess this chapter really illustrates the parallels between Sasuke and Madara. And I mean, I have to admit, like, there's been commonalities between Madara and Sasuke, but I don't think the story ever really, tried to hammer it in the way they did with Naruto and Hashirama in their parallels. Like, I mean, obviously there are things similar with Madara and Sasuke, but I never really thought that there were as strong parallels between the two of them, like in the similar way that there was with Naruto and Hashirama. But I guess there's also a parallel between them. So I think, I guess the main thing story-wise this chapter did was just illustrate those parallels. But I think a lot of us, kind of somewhat expected. I mean, they were there. So that's kind of about it, what happened with this week's chapter. I mean, it was okay. The fight scenes were awesome, and it'll be interesting to see, obviously, what that looks like when that's animated and in motion and stuff. As far as what I expect to happen with next week's chapter in upcoming story-wise, I guess, honestly, I imagine we'll get to see how Hashirama and Madara met, and I imagine it will be pretty much like how Sasuke and Naruto met, which I guess that would be fun, but we've already seen that. So I don't know how awesome that would be. I mean, that's what I expect to happen, and that's kind of where that's probably gonna go most likely, that we're just gonna get Naruto and Sasuke 2.0, or I guess, Naruto and Sasuke's relationship as Madara and Hashirama 2.0, but either way, no matter what you want to call it, I think it's the same thing, that, rivals who become friends and one of them loses their brother and he becomes evil and they become enemies. So I think, and one of them tries to save their friend from being evil, but I guess, with Madara and Hashirama, we know that that ultimately failed. And I guess, the point of Naruto, I think, since there are the parallels between Madara and Hashirama, that I think it's obvious that, and I think we've all known this for a good long while, is that, Naruto's gonna save Sasuke from the dark side. Although, honestly, it kind of seems like Sasuke's kind of saving himself, that he knows more about what happened with his family and with Itachi and with the village, and I think he's got a greater context to things than what Madara initially told him. I mean, I think Madara told him the truth, but I think, Madara obviously told him or it was Obito, whichever the hell one of them it was. But I think obviously, they told them a very, slanted version of the truth to get Sasuke to do what they wanted. I think now Sasuke has a more comprehensive and holistic version of what happened, and I think he has knowledge about what happened in context. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Madara became evil, is because when he lost his brother, maybe he just couldn't see that in the context of the bigger picture, or maybe he learned about it or was told about it in a very, slanted way, and maybe somebody told him that information in a particularly manipulative way, and I guess maybe he just didn't want to take the time to think about it. So I guess that poses a pretty interesting view on Sasuke's development, that essentially on his own, Sasuke did what Madara couldn't, which was, to take what happened to his family and to actually investigate it and to think about it and to not just remain angry. Although he was for a while, Sasuke obviously did some stuff. But I guess it's kind of nice to see that, Sasuke picked himself up out of the void because, he talked to Itachi and, he talked to people and he figured out what happened. And I think that gave him context to what happened. And I guess, in a nutshell, I think that Sasuke, decided to grow up and do what adults do, which is to figure out what happened, to put things into perspective, and to be logical, and to figure out the context of what happens around you, even when it's horrible. And I think that that's probably something that obviously Madara refused to do. I think that he refused to take an adult approach to his pain, and he acted out like a child. And I guess, I think last chapter, I think Tobirama and Hashirama kind of hit on that, is that seems to be how the Uchiha unfortunately react to things because of how emotional they tend to be, is that, and I guess Madara exemplifies that, is that instead of healing and, taking things in stride like an adult, like he just decided to dissolve into an emotional state. And I guess, into fairness, to Madara, there are a lot of real people who do that, who, honestly, I think it's easier to become an emotional train wreck than to do what it takes to take stock of things emotionally and psychologically, and to do what needs, to do that type of house cleaning and to put those kind of things in perspective. And I think a lot of people have trouble with that. And I think a lot of people don't have the excuse, well, you know, my brother was killed being a ninja. Like, most of it's just, you know, there's a lot of people who become train wrecks for really a lot simpler and more ridiculous reasons than why Madara did. You know, so he's a little bit more justified in deciding not to take emotional stock. Because, I mean, it can be very difficult to be emotionally objective, you know, when you lose a family member. So, I guess with that, we'll probably get more flashbacks next chapter. We'll probably figure out how Sasuke's gonna, you know, deal with his things. I think Sasuke's probably at the point where he's probably gonna choose to be a good guy, like I said last week, because that seems like that's where that's going. Obviously, I think in this chapter we're probably gonna get some information that's gonna help us defeat Madara and Obito. So that's probably where these flashbacks are going to go. So it'll be interesting to see how the information we gain can be applicable to stopping Madara and Obito. So definitely looking forward to next chapter. I think it's probably just going to be flashbacks again, but it's still nice to see the story progress. So with that, this has been a review of Naruto Chapter 621, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the review. Make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe, and let me know what you guys thought about this week's chapters in the comment section down below. So I'll see you guys again later.